So this is our first live, and we are coming as three passionate women who are willing to share our stories of how we've gone from adversity and made that an advantage in our lives. And I want to welcome any and everyone who is watching either live or after the fact, that we are delighted that you have taken a moment to be with us. That somewhere in your life before the age of 18, you went through a series of traumatic and difficult experiences that made you feel unsafe, made you feel vulnerable, made you feel uncertain, things that hurt you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And we are here as women who've gone through something as well and hope to present a path of how you move from that adversity again to finding a life that's empowered, a life that's emotionally intelligent, and a life that is evolved. So we also want to say that this is not therapy, right, ladies? Right? This is not therapy. We're not trained therapists. Um, and we want to stay in our lane. We are demonstrating or modeling transformation. So today, is it okay if I share a little bit of my background, my ACE story? Yeah. So I want to frame this story as betrayal becomes a breakthrough. I will never forget the day that the love of my life became a different love for me. I remember I was in the car with my father, and I was around maybe 7 or 8 years old. We were driving around running some errands together, I believe, and he drove down a block and he said, "You see that apartment over there? That's where I stay sometimes." And I thought that was an odd thing to say since my father stayed at our home with my brother, my sister, my mother, and me. And I didn't think much of it other than that statement. And then one day, my mother was rummaging through drawers and found a key. I was there with her and she took the key and she said, "I don't know what this key is for. I've never seen this key in your father's drawer." And I said, "I think I might have an idea of what that key goes to." We got in the car, we drove. I said, "I think that key belongs to that house, that apartment." So my mother and I get out of the car. We walk to the door. My mother knocks on the door. There's no answer. She knocks again on the door. There is no answer. And then my mother, with her boldness, puts the key into the door and unlocks it. And when she walks in and I walk in, we don't see my father, but we do see my father's belongings and another woman's belongings. I was devastated. I could not understand how my father, the man in whom I found comfort and love and trust, could be loving and living with another woman. And I decided in that moment, if I wasn't good enough for my father's love, I wasn't good enough for any man's love. That pain of recognition was so deep and so profound for me that I decided that I couldn't live without my father's love. So secretly and privately, I went to the medicine cabinet and I found some pills. And this at this time they were just aspirin, but for me they were enough to decide I didn't want to live on this earth anymore. I took the pills. I remember falling asleep, and then I remember waking up in the same predicament, which is my father no longer loving and living with me. Later, this shows up in my life. This adverse childhood experience shows up in my life in every male relationship. Twice married, twice divorced. I couldn't find the good enough in me that a man, a husband, a boyfriend could love me. So what I would do is I would often accuse them of wanting someone other than me. If we were out to dinner together and a beautiful woman walks in, I'm like, "You want her, don't you? You don't want me, you want her." And this went on and on and on and on. And those relationships started to diminish. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not because the men that I loved were perfect and I was imperfect. No, no, no. It's that I was bringing a baggage into those relationships that harmed the intimacy and the connection that I desperately wanted. What interrupt that pattern for me was when a friend invited me to attend a 3-day course. And in that 3-day course, I began to understand that the story I kept telling myself that I am not enough, that I am not lovable enough, was a story that was running the show. And the moment you recognize the story, the pattern is an opportunity to break that pattern. When I understood that, oh, wait, so I don't have to live in this I'm not enough land. There is something else for me. That was the journey. It wasn't the end of the trauma and drama, but it was the beginning of learning that I can change my story. And one of the ways to change my story was to become emotionally aware of what that story was doing to my soul, my heart, my spirit. That was the path that kicked off for me learning what emotional intelligence is, how it can make the difference, and how I can turn that feeling of betrayal into a breakthrough and change my not enough story to I am more than enough. I am worthy and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That adversity didn't break me. It built me into a sustainable, passionate, emotionally intelligent woman and mother. In emotional intelligence, one of the 5 competencies is called self-perception. How do you see yourself? And if we look at emotional intelligence as a build upon skill, not just something you were born with, but actually a skill that you cultivate, that you grow in, self-perception was a low skill for me because I could not see my divine self. I could not see my human design self. I couldn't see the woman that could evolve. I was living in a self-perception that I wasn't enough. And if I were to go back in time and talk to that 10-year-old Pamela, the 10-year-old to the adult Pamela Elaine, I would help her understand that this is a skill of self-perception that you can develop and you can increase your self-regard because right now your self-regard as a skill is low. And what we can do is we can use your skill of self-expression, which I'm really been good at since I was young, to help bolster your self-regard. How would you do that? Well, why don't you express to yourself how worthy you are and find a couple of things in your life that point to you are worthy. Let's just start with you've got some great friendships. That great friendship is an example of you being worthy, you being good enough. So let's talk. Let's talk to yourself. Let's express emotional words that point to your self-regard. And let's just start in that little tiny place and see if that doesn't help elevate you to feel better about who you are as a child and then as a woman. So emotional intelligence, human design, evolution are all part of this one woman story from betrayal to breakthrough. I- And I would ask the question to those listening, what is keeping you from being your highest self? Is it childhood experience? And what might that be? Because if you can name that, then the 3 of us can offer you insight and expertise. But I would really encourage you, maybe even challenge you. What is standing in the way? That's the first step.